On tonight, I want you to turn to Mark chapter 7, and I want to read verses 14 through 23. Again, Mark chapter 7, verses 14 through 23. There we read these words. And when he had called all the people unto him, he said unto them, Hearken unto me, every one of you, and understand. There is nothing from without a man that entering into him can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man. If a man have ears to hear, let him hear. And when he was entered into the house from the people, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. And he said unto them, Are you so without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatsoever things from without entering into the man, it cannot defile him, because it entereth not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out in the draught, purging all meats? And he said, That which comes out of the man, that defiles the man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murderers, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All of these evil things come from within and defile the man. I'd like to give you a biblical understanding of what we just read, and then to make a very practical application in specific and in broad aspects of our lives. Here's what I mean. In this particular passage, Mark chapter 7, and even in the verses prior to what we just read, they were making a big deal about what defiles a person. Getting caught up into technicalities of the law of Moses, that is. One of the concerns that they had was about people not washing their hands. Things of that nature were of such scrutiny to them that they thought that, well, that taints you as a person because you're eating and not washing your hands. And so this larger conversation about what defiles a person is specifically addressing the fact that it is not those external factors that make us impure or tainted or defiled, but it's the things that's in us, the corruption of our hearts. That's what defiles a person. That is the specific thing that Jesus was addressing. In a more broad sense, he is also saying that the problem is we have a tendency to not really deal with the problem. We like to attribute something else and not really get to what the real core issue is. See, they wanted to attribute the problem of defilement in Mark chapter 7 to that of people not washing their hands. And Jesus is saying you are attributing defilement to the wrong things. What really defiles a person is what's internal, it's who the person is. Let's deal with the root cause. Now, this is a great example for us to consider about getting to what the real problem is as we think about so many different things in our lives. In the context of this passage, it is about what defiles a person. But take that to other aspects of life. For example, we wonder why it is we are unhappy, or why we're not as happy as we would like to be. Are we using the same misguided concept that Jesus had to address with these people, in that they were attributing one thing when in reality it wasn't the main thing, the real thing, or the one thing? They were giving credit to the wrong thing for the one thing they were making a big deal out of. Now, let me hear you say that 10 times. You see, the problem with us is that we don't recognize that in our lives we have a tendency to deal with causes, but not root causes. We deal with that stuff that's on the surface, that stuff that, in terms of psychology, is what they call the presenting issue. We like to deal with symptoms and don't really deal with problems. For example, when we say that we are unhappy, we're unhappy for reasons like unmanaged stress, being overwhelmed, disappointments, loneliness, unmet financial needs, being hurt by reality when we focus on idealism. Sometimes we are unhappy because of the choices that loved ones make. But are those things really the problem? Like, if your unhappiness is due to stress, is that the real problem? Or is the real problem that maybe you take on too much? If we say that I'm unhappy because I'm overwhelmed, is it that you're overwhelmed is the problem, or is the real problem time management? If you say that I'm unhappy because of disappointments, is it really disappointments, or is it maybe your perspective and how you see things? Some say, well, I'm unhappy because I'm lonely. Well, is loneliness the problem? Or is it your personality? Are you a personable person? I have unmet financial needs, and that's why I'm unhappy. Is that really the problem, or is it a lack of good financial planning? I'm unhappy because I just can't stand reality. Is it that reality is so bad, or is it that you're focused so much on idealism that you're not ready to grapple with reality? I am lonely. I am dealing with unmet needs. All of these different things can be surface excuses. You say, well, I'm unhappy because of the choices of loved ones. Is that what makes you unhappy, or is the problem that you're taking ownership for choices that others need to be taking? You see, in our lives, we have a tendency to attribute the wrong thing to what's the real problem. Like in Mark chapter 7, they are focusing on people washing their hands, or the lack of washing their hands, as the reason for a person's heart being tainted. And Jesus is saying, you're not even dealing with what the real problem is. Much of the reason why people are unhappy in life is because they don't deal with the real problem. They attribute something else. They deal with what's on the surface. They deal with the symptoms, but they don't deal with the root cause. Let me give you 5 practical steps that can really help you to move toward a greater level of happiness in life. Number 1, seek to solve problems and not to suppress symptoms rather. Many times people are not trying to solve problems. They only want the symptoms, which usually is pain. They just want the pain to go away. But they don't really want to deal with what is the real problem, what's the real source of pain. So seek to solve problems and don't just suppress symptoms. Number 2, redirect your prayer life to focus more on self-examination and to focus on God's revelation to you. When we pray, we have a tendency of praying and asking for more things, bigger things, better things. We pray for our health. We pray for those types of things. We pray for our finances. But do we ever really pray and say, Lord, help me to see me? Help me to see where I am in error, where my choices, where maybe my perspective is wrong. Or Lord, help me to see what you see. So redirect your prayer life. It just might change things. Because we're unhappy with everybody else. And what's the common factor? It may be us. Number 3, Ask trusted spiritual people to be honest with you. Now, there are people around you that see some things in you that you don't know they see. There are people around you that know some stuff about you don't know that they know. And they would probably never say anything to you because they're being cautious, they're being tactful, and they know if they were to be honest, it probably would create a whirlwind of confusion and divide a relationship. Because we have a tendency to like the people who lie to us and have disdain for the people who are honest with us. But you can't always see yourself the way you should be seen. So you may want to ask someone who's trusted and who's spiritual to be honest with you. Number 4, start journaling. And when you have pains and problems, just pay attention to the patterns and practices of your life. If you start just writing down stuff and you look at it, you'll start to see that sometimes the unhappy outcomes in your life are the result of patterns and or practices that you have set up. And so if you look at those things, maybe you can start changing some patterns or changing some practices to get some different outcomes. And number 5, and I want you to really take number 5 to heart. This is if you want to be happy. Ask yourself, do I want to be happy? That might seem like a rhetorical question, but it's not. Sometimes I think folk just don't want to be happy. They want to complain. They want sympathy. They want attention. So ask yourself, do I really want to be happy? And if you really want to be happy, you got some work you got to do. And it's designed to help you to get to the root cause of what's going on with you. This has been another installment of A Few Minutes with the Minister.